If one day you get kidnapped, and next to you is a Russian mercenary with his mouth gagged by your stinky socks, don't panic because he'll use every ounce of strength to stand up, stick his butt out, and let you pull the sock out for him. Once he's free, you'll have a teammate with explosive combat power. The kidnapper's nightmare is just beginning, of course. That's assuming you too can escape alive. My name is Wong Tao, and now I'm regretting it like crazy. I just won second prize in the lottery. Why did I have to show off and come to Africa to see elephants? Couldn't the zoo back home hold you? Well, now I've overdone it. All fake stuff AJ's bought from Fuchsia Market. A genuine sand gold necklace bought from a live stream. A knockoff Gucci top. Bootleg Armani pants, except for the CK underwear I bought for $40 on Toxicsy. Not a single real item, but these African guys couldn't tell they really thought they'd nabbed a tycoon. While I was dodging the tour group to use the restroom, they just grabbed me. So peeing wherever you want is really bad, especially hiding in a corner. To piss, it can seriously put your life in danger. If I could do it over, I'd piss right in front of the whole regiment. Just as I was lost in those thoughts, the door opened. I thought it was the kidnappers, but they shoved in a white guy all tied up. Fuck, son of a bitch, this dude had balls. Even with his hands tied, his mouth wouldn't shut. I was in awe. The black kidnapper had clearly had enough. He searched the whole room for something to gag him with, but it was empty. Finally, his eyes landed on me well on my AJs. My shoes were gone. I was missing one sock. Looking at the white guy, I saw a sock stuff in his mouth with a faint LV logo. No surprise, it was one of my cheap knockoffs. Africa travel shoes, polyester socks. You can imagine how eye-watering that smell was. The white guy glared at me, tears streaming down his face, cursing silently. You bastard, would it kill you to wash? I tilted my head innocently. Acrylic socks stink. Naturally, it's not my fault. But there was no time for eye contact. There were only 12 hours left until the ransom deadline. If the money didn't arrive by tomorrow morning, I didn't need to think about what would happen to me. I'd definitely be worse off than that white guy. They're demanding $100,000 US. 100,000. Hey, all you capable people back home, can some streamer talk the price down? That white guy saw every bit of my expression. He'd gotten used to the smell of the socks and started making efforts toward me, whimpering Anton. A common Russian name, but an uncommon identity. A mercenary. He never expected to die on the battlefield, only to be kidnapped by a bunch of black thugs in this small country. Getting kidnapped was bad enough, but why do they have to use biochemical weapons on him? I'd have puke too, just managed to hold it in for fear of choking on my own vomit. Bro, can you check on me? His sobbing sounded terrible. I finally looked up at him, and Anton was frantically signaling with his eyes. But when I saw this bald white guy winking at me, I got a little scared. I thought, is this dude gay? I braced my feet on the ground and slowly inched away. Bro, we're being kidnapped here. Can your brain not go off on such a wild tangent? Good thing I kept glancing at him. Anton was afraid the kidnappers would come back, so he stopped winking and instead tilted his head and nodded to indicate I should help get the sock out. The act was obvious enough. I finally understood that he wasn't a pervert. He needed my help. Anton was completely relieved finally. They could communicate. He nodded vigorously. What do you want me to do? Anton lifted his chin, signaling me to take the sock out of his mouth. He wanted me to take the sock. He nodded frantically, like an electric shock. Then I fell silent again, continuing to worry. Anton was frantic with anxiety. Hope was right in front of him. So why was this guy being so tsundere? Time ticked by. In a crisis, the mind works fast. He suddenly realized that I hadn't misunderstood. I just didn't want to take the sock with my mouth. I was pretending to be clueless. Bro, dying isn't scary. What's scary is being disgusted right before death. But who said I had to use my mouth? I still had my hands. As long as I turned sideways, I could pull the sock out with my hands. It was too hard to express clearly with his mouth blocked, and on top of that, I wasn't cooperating. It was hell mode. But Anton was used to being in tight spots. No matter how hard, he persisted. Pressing his back against the wall, he pushed hard with his legs, twisting his body to slowly stand up. Extremely demanding on the quadriceps, veins bulging on his forehead, he let out a grunt and began. The rough wall scraped his bare skin raw, blood staining the wall. He nearly fell several times, but fortunately his balance was good, and in the end he managed to stand up. I felt both admiration and fear toward him. I admired that he could accomplish something so difficult, but I was afraid that if he stood up, he might retaliate. Anton took a breath, tiptoed in little steps, and turned around, presenting his back to me. His still bleeding hands opened and closed with effort. I quickly caught on. Bro, you want me to use my hands to pull your socks off? He finally heard the answer he wanted, trembling all over with excitement. How do I need to cooperate with you? Anton shuffled sideways to stand in front of me, making a turning over motion, then raised his bound hands high. He wanted me to turn sideways and lift my arm to help pull off his socks. Seeing how accurately I guessed, Anton trembled all over with excitement. I also grew curious. What did this white guy want to tell me, going through all this trouble? His hands and feet were tied with zip ties, making it hard to turn on his side. It took him 3 minutes to roll over, then he bent down to raise his hands higher, waiting nearly 2 more minutes. Only then did Anton bring his face close to my hands, hunched over with his belly tucked in. Plus, eating cassava in Africa had started to upset his stomach. Cassava is similar to sweet potatoes. It generates gas when eaten too much. A long, drawn-out fart echoed, and Anton was completely stunned. Bastard, can't you hold it in? Sukabliat. He was so angry he didn't even curse in English anymore, switching directly to Russian. But his mouth was still gagged, so he could only curse in his mind. Sorry. I apologized, but my intestines churned again. It was even longer than the last one, blowing up the few remaining strands of Anton's hair. Humans are adaptable. Anton had already resigned himself to fate. Don't apologize. Just don't talk, big brother. Get the sock out quickly. But I'm a very polite person. My mother taught me since childhood that you should apologize when you do something wrong. I'm sorry. Anton felt that today was the darkest day of his life. He had developed a conditioned response upon hearing those 3 words, closing his eyes and bracing for the gas attack. But surprisingly, nothing happened this time. His accumulated gas had been spent. Finally, the man began pulling off the sock, which was covered in Anton's drool. Anton's jaw had been open for too long, and he couldn't close it properly for a while. It took nearly 2 minutes for him to regain his ability to speak. Bro, I know you can't come up with the ransom. I'm broke too. Want to take a gamble? I'm wearing all these branded clothes. How could I be broke? Anton pouted. Counterfeit goods can only fool black folks. LV socks don't make feet this stinky. I felt defeated. He really was broke after all. How do we gamble? He spoke rapidly. That black guy was too busy beating me up to pat me down. There's a small knife in my left pants pocket. You take it out and cut the zip ties binding me. Okay, that's when I realized he wasn't just foul-mouthed. He had ulterior motives. Every foreigner I've met abroad is no fool. They all have a lot of tricks up their sleeves. Anton didn't expect much from me. He just wanted me to cut the zip ties. Zip ties used to be a luxury item only affordable in the US. But ever since China started producing them, they've become cheap, high quality, and incredibly sturdy. Being tied up with these things is a nightmare. I struggled to unzip Anton's pants and took out the knife. I adjusted the angle and started cutting. Nice knife. This guy really has guts. He doesn't take the kidnappers seriously at all. Anton finally realized that I was just a kid raised in a safe zone. And it's true, I grew up in a safe zone. I've barely seen any fights, let alone kidnappings. The only fierce battles I've ever witnessed were the ones Biao fought on TV. After cutting a small slit in the zip tie, I used my arm strength to snap it open. I rubbed my wrists, rolled my shoulders, then cut the zip ties on my feet and went to untie Anton. Once freed, Anton quickly moved his body to maintain peak condition. I also sensed something was up, but didn't ask what he planned to do. I just put on my socks and shoes on my own. When he saw me put on that same sock again, Anton's mouth twitched just like Zhao Ci's. He really had psychological trauma. After stretching, he said to me, "In a moment, I'll kill that black guy, grab the gun, and then rush out. You follow behind me. If you fall behind, you're on your own." Okay, I said, my nervous tone betraying that this was my first time. A green recruit facing something like this survival rate, less than 30%. Anton sighed. People from East Asian countries were too complacent. He didn't even ask if I knew how to use a gun, just stood behind the door waiting for the kidnappers. Time ticked by. Either the kidnappers were too relaxed or truly scared off by the stench. Half an hour passed with no one coming in to check. Anton was patient, his ears trained on the sounds outside. I kept my eyes glued to the door, trembling all over. Anton took it all in. A green recruit. Hopefully luck would be on our side. Thud, thud. The sound of slippers on the stairs came from outside. Anton, who had been brimming with confidence just moments ago, turned pale. 3 men at once. seeing his face scrunch up like a steamed bun. Even I, dense as I was, knew things had gone beyond expectations. I knew this Mediterranean guy was unreliable. Muttering a quiet complaint, I stood up and walked over to him. Anton lowered his voice. 3 of them. You hold off one. Leave the rest to me. I nodded. The footsteps drew closer, my heart in my throat. Tension filled the small room, the air stagnating. Heavy breaths intertwined with footsteps, tightening the atmosphere further. Then the footsteps stopped at the door. Then came the sound of keys, the lock turning. I clenched my fists, my nails nearly digging into my flesh. Adrenaline surged, and my whole body trembled. Anton had no time to worry about me. I just prayed this Asian guy would be reliable. He could hold off one of them. The door hinges probably hadn't been oiled since installation, letting out a grinding, teeth-clenching screech as they slowly revealed a crack. Anton moved suddenly, hooking his fingers around the door edge. Using the strength of his latissimus dorsi, he yanked hard, and the door swung open. The kidnapper who had opened the door froze. In that 2-second window, Anton grabbed him by the collar and yanked him inside, then rushed out the door. Needless to say, this was the one I had to deal with. The pitch-black kidnapper also snapped back to reality. He reached for the knife at his waist, ready to take down the Asian man in front of him. Just as the kidnapper thought the Asian was frozen in fear, Wong Tao moved. Black people's physique is no joke. All muscle and sinew. Wong Tao wanted to hold off the kidnapper, who was more muscular than him, which seemed nearly impossible to onlookers. Just as the kidnapper's hand touched the knife handle, confident he had it in the bag, Wong Tao suddenly struck. No fancy moves. In fact, he didn't even use his hands. A headbutt from below slammed into the kidnapper's chin. When a person's chin takes a heavy blow, the brain collides violently with the skull, causing a severe concussion. The attacked kidnapper briefly lost consciousness. In truth, humans are a bundle of contradictions, both fragile and resilient. In their fragility, even a sip of water can cost a life. When he needed toughness, he smashed the head with a hammer, still able to keep moving. The unconscious kidnapper collapsed limply to the ground. Wong Tao didn't want to end up like in the movies, where you don't finish someone off and they recover, and turn the tables at the last moment. So Wong Tao gripped the kidnapper's neck tightly, trying to choke him to death. But the kidnapper was black, with neck muscles way too thick. No matter how hard he squeezed, he couldn't get a solid hold. Frustrated, Wong Tao stopped choking and switched to smashing his elbow into the kidnapper's head. 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits. His elbow was practically smoking from emotion. No matter how muscular a black man's body is, the head is the same as anyone else's. Within half a minute, the kidnapper's skull was caved in by Wong Tao. Red and white splattered all over Wong Tao's sleeve. For a normal person, seeing this would have made them sick to their stomach. But Wong Tao acted like nothing had happened. He calmly lifted the kidnapper up and took the AK that was pinned onto the kidnapper. Of course, he also grabbed the knife from the kidnapper's waist. Meanwhile, in the corridor outside the room, Enong was engaged in a fight with the remaining 2 kidnappers. Although Enong struck first, catching the kidnappers off guard, fighting 2 opponents alone was still extremely difficult, especially since Enong was also worried about the situation in the room. If Wong Tao hadn't dealt with the kidnapper in the room, then Enong would have been done for. After about 30 seconds, the kidnapper who went into the room didn't come out. Enong relaxed a little. But why was there not a single sound of a struggle from inside the room? The 2 kidnappers barely managed to fend off Ondong's attacks. Enong was using Sambo, a combat skill employed by the Soviet military, fighting for a quick resolution. Every move Enong made was aimed at vital points. The 2 kidnappers struggled to keep up. Their defeat was only a matter of time, and time was exactly what Enong lacked the most. There are more than just these 3 kidnappers. The sounds of fighting here have already attracted the attention of the kidnappers' accomplices downstairs. The shouts are getting closer and closer. The black man's ability to withstand blows. Frustrated Anton, who was used to using a gun. Bang! Suddenly a gunshot rang out, broke the deadlock. After Wong Tao came out of the house holding an AK. He seized the moment and fired a shot. It was both decisive and accurate, at a distance of less than 3 meters. Hit by a 7.62 millimeters bullet. Without body armor, the consequences were predictable. The kidnapper fell to the ground with the sound. As for the remaining kidnapper, he stopped fighting with Anton. He turned and ran, moving incredibly fast. Bang! No matter how fast he ran, it wasn't faster than a bullet. Both kidnappers were easily taken care of by Wang Tao. Anton was utterly shocked. Among Asians, 10 out of 10 can't handle a gun. And just now, Wang Tao's behavior inside the house had been extremely cowardly. That was just a minute ago. How did he become a completely different person? Chinese people rarely have a presence in the mercenary world. So Anton had never interacted with Chinese people before. In the eyes of foreigners, Asians are often seen as weak. And the humility of Chinese people, in the eyes of those who are direct and straightforward, also appears as weakness. It is said that Russians are a warrior race. But in truth, Chinese people are the real warriors. For example, take PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Chinese people rarely suffer from it. Once a Chinese person is pushed to the limit, it's as if they activate a berserker buff. Killing comes without any psychological burden. And Wang Tao was exactly like that. Anton didn't have time to dwell on Wang Tao's strangeness. Of course, the stronger his teammate was, the better. He quickly picked up the AK and magazine from the kidnapper Wang Tao had killed. Shouting, "Follow me," Anton needed to secure the stairwell position before the kidnappers downstairs rushed up. If they were too late, they'd be trapped back in the room. A single grenade, and it's all over. Wang Tao, holding an AK, followed closely behind Anton, running towards the stairway. Over here in Africa, things are different from back home. Most slums consist of these two-story houses that look like villas. Only the wealthy areas have tall buildings. When Anton reached the stairway, he didn't immediately stick his head out. Instead, he extended his AK around the corner and let off a long burst. Bang ik dama! A scream. Anton's blind fire had hit someone. Apart from the one who was hit and injured, the other 3 kidnappers were treated back the way they came. They abandoned their teammate without hesitation. Forget about never leave anyone behind. There are very few real armies in the world that can actually do that, let alone a bunch of kidnappers. Anton, experienced, knew this was a window of opportunity, so he stuck his head out to check the stairs, and also gave a finishing shot, putting the injured kidnapper on the stairs out of his misery. Then Anton and Wang Tao found themselves in an awkward situation. They dared not go downstairs. All the windows were sealed shut. There was no way to jump out of a window. Wang Tao asked, "What do we do now?" If only they had a bulletproof vest, even one made of steel plates. Anton would risk charging down, but they had nothing. The staircase to the first floor had no cover. It would be no different from walking to their deaths. Anton frowned and replied, "Don't rush. Let me think." Hearing this, Wang Tao knew Anton was out of ideas. He would have to figure something out himself. When it came to wisdom, the old ancestors had the answers. Dealing with this situation was a piece of cake for them. Using the tactic of all warfare is based on deception was perfectly reasonable here. Wang Tao said to Anton, "Let's act like we're about to charge out, then fire a few shots just to scare the enemies on the first floor. After repeating this 3 times, we'll really charge out." Anton's eyes lit up at that. That was a good idea if I were down there getting messed around like that twice. I'd let my guard down too. Then suddenly someone storms down. They'd definitely hesitate for a few seconds. Anton said shamelessly, "That's just what I was thinking." He spoke slowly, his accent always rolling his RS. A classic example of Russian English. Wang Tao finally saw it clearly. This Rusky really had a thick skin. Then let us just shit. Before Wang Tao could even finish the word "do it," Anton charged downstairs with his gun. Suka bliet, ura. Then came 2 gunshots. The kidnappers on the first floor cooperated perfectly, raining bullets toward the corner of the stairwell. Looking at the holes punched in the wall by the bullets, Anton was glad he hadn't rushed down in a headstrong moment, or he'd have been shot so badly his own mother wouldn't recognize him. That would really blown him to bits. Now Wang Tao had only one thought in mind: to pull out his newly bought phone, go on Tieba, and post a thread asking, "In the middle of a fight, and my teammate is a Russian guy. What do I do?" While waiting online, Anton took the ammo clip from the dead kidnapper, stuffed it into his jacket, and returned to the stairway on the second floor. After the gunfire stopped, the 2-story building fell into an eerie silence, making everyone nervous. About 3 minutes later, Anton suddenly jumped up. Hurrah! Anton's sudden outburst. Whether it scared the kidnapper or not is unknown, but sure gave Wang Tao a good fright. Damn, this Russian's got a screw loose. Another long burst of fire, followed by another round of wild shooting. That wall at the corner of the stairs sure had it rough. The plaster blasted off from the outside, exposing the red bricks. After doing this twice, Anton thought it felt thrilling. Felt like all the previous fighting was wasted. Just charging ahead foolishly. Compared to this, it was utterly stupid. After another 2 minutes, this time Anton didn't even shout Yura, just went straight to a long sound, then fired 10 rounds. This time the return fire was much slower, and the bullets fired were half as many as before. After the gunfire stopped, an angry voice came from downstairs. "Fuck you, coward." Anton, who was cursed at, didn't reply. After all, he would be dead in a few minutes anyway. Let them have their fun with words. Another 2 minutes passed. This time Wang Tao stuck close to Anton. "Yura," Anton shouted loudly, using the shout to mask the footsteps. At the same time, he fired 3 shots down the stairs. Bang X3 went upstairs. The gunfire didn't seem like much. But once on the stairs, the sound was truly deafening. Under the cover of the gunfire, the footsteps were already hard to distinguish. This time, the enemy was just as Wang Tao had predicted. They still thought it was a feint. Their attention wasn't that focused. Anton, a veteran of many battles, knew well that in a narrow encounter, the brave wins. At times like this, the more timid you are, the easier you die. Instead, charging straight ahead might just let you survive. Anton didn't count on Wang Tao's marksmanship to cover him. A paratrooper fears nothing. Pressing down on his AK with one hand, Anton rushed to the corner of the stairs. There he saw a kidnapper staring at him in surprise, as if asking, "Why did you come down?" Bang! From 3 meters away. It would be hard to miss even if you tried. The AK fired the 7.62 intermediate rifle cartridge. With excellent stopping power, a bloom of blood burst from the chest of the hit kidnapper. The bullet exited from his back, leaving the outside seemingly intact. But in reality, his lungs and heart inside the chest cavity, all torn apart by the sheer kinetic force of the bullets. Enong, who had just shot the kidnapper, didn't slow down his pace at all. He kept charging toward the exit. Wang Tao was about a meter or so behind Enong. It wasn't that Wang Tao was a coward, but rather to keep a clear field of fire. Otherwise, if he raised his gun, the muzzle would probably end up poking Enong in the back. Enong, shouting "Ura," seemed to have some kind of buff. Fierce and decisive. There were only 3 kidnappers left on the first floor, and their positioning showed some thought. 2 were hiding behind a wooden desk on the left, and the third was behind a sideways sofa on the right. Enong could only handle enemies on one side. With no other choice, Enong had to trust Wang Tao. "You take right, I'll take left." Ondong's order was simple and clear. After giving the order, Enong pulled the trigger. Bullets rained down on the 2 kidnappers on the left. The wooden desk, meant to be cover, offered no real protection, causing the 7.62 bullets of the AK to tumble slightly. The most terrifying thing about gunshot wounds is when the bullet doesn't penetrate the body, but stays inside. This creates a large cavity, and the stopping power is quite significant. The 2 kidnappers didn't put up any resistance and went straight to meet their maker. Of course, more likely they met Satan. Hearing Anton's command, Wang Tao, who came out later, aimed directly to the right. When the iron sights, in his view, showed the face of a kidnapper, Wang Tao pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang! The kidnappers were stunned for no more than a few seconds. And in those few seconds, life or death was decided. Everything happened in about 30 seconds, and the fight was over. After dealing with the enemies, Wang Tao relaxed, found a sofa, and plopped down to rest. Anton did the same. High-intensity combat drained their physical strength greatly. Plus, after being tied up, they hadn't eaten anything. Both of them looked like they were about to collapse. Anton, sitting on the chair, kept his eyes fixed on the front door of the house. Wang Tao, after reloading his magazine, asked, "Shouldn't we call the cops?" Hearing Wang Tao mention calling the police, Anton looked at him like he was an idiot. "What's wrong? Isn't calling the police the right thing to do?" Anton sighed, thinking how safe East Asia really was. Then he replied to the naive Wang Tao, "If you've had enough of living, then go ahead and call the police. But I'm not ready to die yet. Do me a favor and wait until I'm gone before you make that call." Wang Tao finally realized that his question was indeed problematic. The Russian in front of him was clearly an experienced pro. As a veteran League of Legends player, Wang Tao knew one thing: if you want to win, you stick with the strong players. So Wang Tao dropped the subject of calling the police. He stood up, walked over to Anton, and extended his hand, saying, "Comrade, hello. My name is Wang Tao. I am Chinese. It's a pleasure to meet you." Foreigners rarely greeted each other with such seriousness. This gesture from Wang Tao made Anton feel respected. Moreover, Wang Tao had used the most important two words: comrade. It had been a long time since anyone had addressed Anton with that term. A long, long time stretching back to the winter of 1991. Anton also stood up. He straightened the front of his clothes, which had been wrinkled during the earlier fight, and then firmly grasped Wang Tao's outstretched hand, saying, "Comrade, hello. My name is Anton Ivanov. I'm Soviet. It's a pleasure to meet you too." Wang Tao also tightened his grip on Anton's hand. In a strange land like Africa, two men who had both grown up under socialism became trusted partners at that moment. If this were China, with such intense gunfire, the police would have arrived within 5 minutes. In this chaotic land of Africa, a few gunshots like that are nothing to scoff at. Forget the police. Even the neighbors on either side wouldn't bat an eye. After they'd gotten familiar, Anton finally explained to Wang Tao why they hadn't called the police. "Tao, use your head. Kidnappers who dare to grab a foreigner in a country's capital and demand a ransom. Do you think they don't have connections?" Wang Tao broke out in a cold sweat instantly after hearing this. If they had really called the cops and waited for them to show up, it would have been walking right into a trap. Cops working with the kidnappers would, to prevent any leaks, 100% guarantee to nip him, the hostage, in the bud right there on the spot. After all, the kidnappers were already dead, and there were no cameras in this place. Other than God, who would know who really killed the guy? Wang Tao's mindset finally shifted. These cops were the polar opposite of the ones back home. The police here are nothing but legalized gangs. Thinking along these lines, Wang Tao, looking somewhat grim, asked, "Then the kidnappers must have accomplices. It's better if teammates have some brains." Anton was quite satisfied with Wang Tao's intelligence. Though called kidnappers, they're actually a branch of the local gang. Every time the kidnappers strike, they hand over 3/4 of the ransom as protection money. Wang Tao was stunned when he heard this. Handing over 3/4? That much? This rookie really doesn't understand anything. Anton had to explain to Wang Tao, this is already a very small share to hand over. You don't think the gang boss takes all 3/4 for himself, do you? The brothers under him get a share. The corrupt police who protect them get a share. And he takes a share for himself. These are the unspoken rules of the underworld. After hearing Anton's explanation, Wang Tao's face turned even darker. The more people there are to split the money, the more enemies they have. Come to think of it, doesn't that mean we'll be hunted by both the cops and the criminals? Anton shrugged and tilted his head as he replied, "Congratulations, you got it right. Too bad there's no reward." Before Wang Tao could recover from the massive shock, Anton gave him another surprise. There's good news, and there's bad news. Which one do you want to hear? Wang Tao answered without hesitation. The bad news. Anton pointed at the dead body on the ground and said, "Under the police's manipulation, these kidnappers will be turned into civilians, and the two of us will become murderers." Wang Tao asked, "And the good news?" "The good news is that the police here are very inefficient. We'll have 20 minutes to rest." Wang Tao's expression finally lightened a bit. He no longer felt like sitting on the couch relaxing. Standing up, he began searching for his passport. Anton, sitting on the chair, and while checking the AK in his hand, he said, "Remember to grab the cash for us to make our getaway." Wang Tao acknowledged with a grunt. First, he went up to the second floor. Then he found the 3 kidnappers he had killed earlier. During the fight, killing them didn't feel like much. But now, in the stillness, seeing the dead bodies made Wang Tao uneasy. Fighting back the nausea, he kept reassuring himself, "These are wild boars, not people. These are wild boars, not people." After repeating it a few times, it actually worked. Wang Tao crouched down and started searching them. From the pockets of the three, he found a total of $76, a Nokia phone, 2 lighters, and a pack of cigarettes with only 3 left. So poor, huh? Wang Tao had hoped for something more. Little did he know, these 3 kidnappers were each poorer than the last. But Wang Tao failed to realize one thing. If the kidnappers had money, why the hell would they be kidnappers? With nothing gained on the second floor, Wang Tao came back down the stairs. And at this moment, Anong looked at Wan Tao with a different expression. Taking advantage of Wang Tao going upstairs, Anong also searched the 3 kidnappers on the first floor. The 2 kidnappers he had killed were relatively normal, but the one Wang Tao had killed was not normal at all. A headshot, hit right between the eyes. Was it intentional aim or just luck? Anong developed a great interest in Wang Tao, both cowardly and tough, growing up in a country with strict gun control, yet possessing such marksmanship. How fascinating. After Wang Tao came downstairs, he saw Anong crouching there, examining the kidnapper he had killed. Wang Tao showed Anong what he had found and said, "There was nothing on those 3 upstairs, just this little bit of money." Anong, as if expecting it, replied, "Same with these 3 downstairs. Looks like our stuff has already been sent away." Having completed 9 years of compulsory education, senior short video connoisseur, Wang Tao's brain was really sharp. He figured out the next plot twist with just a little thought. Since these 7 kidnappers were just small fry, there must be a big boss behind the scenes, and a big boss who knew their identities. Thinking like this, the gang that knew his and Anton's identities would surely send people to stake out the embassy entrance. In that case, the embassy was definitely off limits. Wang Tao now had only one path left: stick close to Anton and never let go. Having figured it out, Wang Tao asked Anton, "Then what do we do now?" Anton replied, "First, get out of Nairobi. Then I'll have a way." Hearing Anton say that, Wang Tao knew a tough fight was coming, so he started getting ready. Since there were so many thieves in Africa, people here had a soft spot for waste bags. Wang Tao didn't mind the bad luck either. He took off a beige audacity waste pack from the dead kidnapper. Wang Tao took the 4 chocolate bars he found on the kidnapper and 2 packs of biscuits, sharing half with Anton. Anton advised, "Eat the biscuits first. Save the chocolate bars." Wang Tao was already starving, his chest practically touching his back. He tore open the biscuit packaging and wolfed them down greedily. Cough, eating too fast, he choked. Seeing this, Anton tossed him a bottle of mineral water. Wang Tao caught it, twisted off the cap, and gulped it all down in one long chug. "Thanks." Anton shrugged and continued finishing off the biscuits in his hand. 1 pack of biscuits was obviously not enough to fill 2 big men, but to conserve supplies. They stopped once the pack was gone. Now full and satisfied, Wang Tao began packing things into the waste pack. You can never have too many bullets. Wang Tao first stuffed 2 magazines into his pant pocket, then shoved 2 more into his waist pouch. Even so, he felt it wasn't enough. As he was about to stuff some into his pants, Anton stopped him helplessly. "That's enough, Wang Tao. Bro, do you need to take a look at yourself in the mirror?" Anton, who said it was enough, had stuffed 8 magazines on himself, almost one in his mouth. Absolutely shameless. Anton picked one phone with full battery out of 5, and then said to Wang Tao, "Just take one phone. Good thing it was a Nokia. All you need to do is toss the SIM card, and it's safe." Wang Tao chose a classic Nokia 8250, tough and reliable as hell. The quality was rock solid. Hacking into it was simply impossible, other than making and receiving calls. All that was left was playing Snake. In the underground world, everyone had one. Pop off the back cover, remove the battery, toss the SIM card away. Wang Tao's movements were as smooth as flowing water, as if he were a seasoned pro at committing crimes. Andon was completely stunned. Wang Tao immediately answered Andon's question. "I used this Nokia for 6 years as a kid. Find a hat and put it on. We should get going." Wang Tao picked up a baseball cap from the ground, ignoring the foul smell of the cap. He put on his head. If you look closely, you could still see specks of blood on it. Andon also picked up a hat from the ground and put it on. Then he made a follow me gesture and walked out of the house. Wang Tao pointed the AK's muzzle downward, sticking close behind Andon, almost like a tag-along. Africa, Kenya. Nairobi, the largest city in East Africa, known as the Little Paris. Obama's hometown. The city is very modern, especially the downtown area. A city of skyscrapers, yet this international metropolis also boasted a notorious slum with a documentary about zombie children who sniff glue. The two-story building where Wong Tao was held sat between the wealthy district and the slums. Inside the building, it didn't seem so bad, but once out the door, Wong Tao was hit by a pungent stench. This stench wasn't like a biological odor, but was laced with a chemical smell. Wong Tao and Anton both wore hats, but an Asian and a white man stood out quite a bit in this area. The black people on the street all turned their eyes on them. Wong Tao felt like a celebrity, and that feeling was far from pleasant. When on the run, one should try to blend into the crowd. After crossing one street corner, Anton suddenly turned right and ducked into a narrow alley. When Wong Tao also turned into the alley, he saw Anton ahead making a stop gesture. Then he turned around. Wong Tao stopped in his tracks, just about to ask Anton what was wrong. He saw Anton raise the AK in his hand toward him, aiming at him. Wong Tao thought Anton was about to turn hostile. Just as he was about to do something, Anton pulled the trigger. Bang! Wong Tao had grown up handling guns since childhood, but seeing the gunshot from a muzzle, it was the first time in his life. Of course, his ears were ringing from the blast. Anton shouted angrily, "Get lost! Don't follow us!" Wong Tao looked back. Wow, there really were two black men in slippers. They were tailing the two men with guns. Really bold. Weren't they afraid of being shot dead? The two black men were quite experienced. Not stunned, they immediately turned and ran. Their slippers flew off as they ran. Anton casually holstered the gun and shouted, "Let's go." Anton and Wong Tao started running again. Their speed noticeably increased. This alley connecting the two streets was no more than 20 meters long. The two quickly reached the end. Anton turned right and pressed himself against the wall. Wong Tao didn't understand why he did that, so he just followed suit, leaning next to Anton. Anton silently began counting down in his mouth. 10, 9, 1. When the countdown ended, Anton pivoted sideways onto one knee. Using a standard tactical maneuver, he raised his AK, pressing the stock into his shoulder, and opened fire instantly. Bang! X10. Just as Wong Tao was baffled, Anton spat out a single word after firing. Go! Wong Tao, leaning against the wall, quickly got up and followed behind Anton. As they passed the alley, Wong Tao glanced sideways and saw the two black men who had been tailing them lying in pools of blood. Wong Tao couldn't help but sigh. Are people here that bold? Anton, hearing Wong Tao's remark, said in a very serious tone, "In Africa, never trust any locals. They don't sell to you only because the price isn't high enough." Got it. Wong Tao kept Anton's advice firmly in mind. This is all life experience. However, Wong Tao had no idea what use this experience would be if he returned home. Anton continued, "Someone must have called to tip them off. Get ready to hijack a car, huh?" Wong Tao prepared for battle. He had fully immersed himself in the role of a bandit, ready to go all out. Anton said they were going to steal a car. Wong Tao set his sights on a battered pickup truck. Upon closer inspection, it was actually made in China. Wong Tao had driven one before when he worked a dead-end job. The quality was quite good. Just as Wong Tao was lost in thought, Anton made his move. But it wasn't what Wong Tao had expected. Anton had grabbed a scooter parked by the roadside. Anton hit the guy who was just standing around with the butt of his rifle, knocked him to the ground, then slung the gun over his back and waved at Wong Tao. Wong Tao was completely bewildered. "I don't mind you stealing a motorcycle, but you had to steal a scooter?" He had to say something sarcastic before Wong Tao could get the words out. Anton saw him still standing there dumbfounded and urged him, "Come on, hurry up." Wong Tao had no choice but to reluctantly squeeze onto the back of the scooter. You can imagine how awkward that scene was. It was a scorching hot afternoon, and after all that intense activity, you can guess how strong Anton's body odor was. And the scooter was so cramped, forcing Wong Tao to press tightly against Anton. Wong Tao could only regret not having a stuffy nose. And on top of that, white people have way too much body hair. It was too bumpy. Wong Tao swore he would never ride a scooter again in his life. If he did, he'd be a dog. Wong Tao was uncomfortable, and Anton wasn't much better off. The reason Anton didn't steal a regular motorcycle was because he didn't know how to ride one. That's right, he just couldn't ride one. But the little scooter was still pretty fast. Anton sped off, racing toward the source of the stench. After going about 100 meters, Wang Tao realized why Anton hadn't stolen a pickup truck. Traffic jam, believe it or not. Africa. Slum. Traffic jam. These three words should never be associated together. But reality proved otherwise. It was a total gridlock. That S when the motorcycle S advantage showed. It weaved nimbly through the traffic. After zigzagging past more than 20 cars, Wang Tao saw the source of the jam. A donkey cart was stopped in the middle of the road, refusing to move no matter what. The donkey's owner was swinging his whip until smoke practically rose from it. But the donkey stood completely still. Anton spotted the source of the traffic jam and blurted out, "Suckabliat, you damn bastard." Wang Tao was sure Anton had suffered through traffic jams in Africa before. After all, who would have thought that in a country with so few cars, you could still experience a traffic jam? As the pungent smell grew stronger, the road became bumpy and potholed, and the houses on either side got shorter and more dilapidated. At the same time, more and more people appeared. Finally, the hallmark of Nairobi's largest slum emerged. Zombie-like children with vacant stares and dazed expressions, sending a chill down Wang Tao's spine. He had only ever seen that look in the eyes of animals or dead bodies. Anton, on his bike, acted as if he hadn't noticed, scanning the surroundings with his peripheral vision, looking for a place to hide. Once there were more people around, the two of them, with their different skin colors, weren't so conspicuous anymore. I have no idea what criteria Anton used to pick the hiding place. After wandering randomly through the slums for about 5 more minutes, Anton finally stopped the scooter in front of a house. Let's just call it a house. The roof was made of corrugated asbestos sheets. The frame was nailed together with wooden beams. As for the walls, they were just plastic sheeting. It was drafty everywhere. Thank goodness Africa doesn't have winter. Otherwise, with this house, you go in soft at night and come out stiff in the morning. It's a natural air-cooled refrigerator. You deserve it. Wang Tao couldn't figure out why Anton chose this place. But given that Anton's previous decisions had all been correct, following him was surely the right move. Anton and Wang Tao squeezed into the house. Inside, it was piled with plastic bottles that could be sold for money. Only a narrow passage was left. Wang Tao followed Anton through the passage. Finally, they reached a slightly more spacious area. Well, it was hard to describe. To the right was a metal bunk bed. On it lay a Simmons mattress with springs poking out. The brown stains on it made one reluctant to even sit down. On the left, however, things got interesting. A foul-smelling toilet. Next to it was an iron pot for burning firewood. The whole setup was designed for eating while taking a dump. Enong plopped himself down on the bed. "Let's rest. We'll hide until nightfall and then figure a way out of the city." Wang Tao said sheepishly, "I think I'd rather stand for a while." Enong didn't insist further. He leaned against the headboard of the metal bunk bed, hugged his AK, and closed his eyes to rest. Wang Tao, still standing, began to let his mind wander. Would the local gangsters really hunt him down? Was it safe to hide here? The motorcycle, the thought that it could reveal their location, made Wang Tao unable to stand still. He said to Anong anxiously, "The motorcycle parked outside. Will this expose our location?" Anton, woken up, was helpless. These guys living in the safe zone are really annoying. Is the security in that safe zone really that good? Anton said helplessly, with a hint of amusement. "Dude, this is Africa. A motorcycle without the keys pulled out. Even if someone's watching it, it gets stolen in less than 5 minutes. Let alone when no one's watching." Somewhat stingy Wang Tao felt a pang of distress thinking about the motorcycle outside being stolen. So he said in a regretful tone that our motorcycle must have been stolen. "Bro, please get straight. That motorcycle was stolen by us, not bought by you." Wang Tao said sheepishly, I just think it's a bit of a waste." Anton couldn't take it anymore. "Shut up. If you don't want to rest, please keep quiet and don't disturb me. I need to rest." With that, Anton closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. Threatened, Wang Tao dared not continue harassing Anton. He had no choice but to study the AK in his hands. For a Chinese person from a gun-restricted country like China, a firearm holds an irresistible allure, especially for someone like Wang Tao, who had already experienced the thrill of firing a gun. His obsession was extreme. Wang Tao's grandfather was an old hunter from the Northeast, his ancestors having made a living hunting in the deep forests. He was known as Wang Cannon in Wangdaling. His marksmanship nothing short of extraordinary. Hunters back then were meticulous to the point of madness about keeping the fur intact. For animals that moved at lightning speed, to get a better price for the pelt, they would aim for the head and never the body. If one shot could kill, firing a second shot meant taking a loss. Bullets were bought by the round. As for the guns they used, they were extremely crude. In the early days, Wang Tao's grandfather used a 16-gauge shotgun, one that was loaded by breaking the barrel. It could only hold 2 rounds at a time. Black bears bear blind, and boars male wild boars. Only 2 shots. Don't know how many hunters were on the hunt. If these 2 bullets didn't hit accurately or kill, the mountain beasts would trample you. By early 1996, Wang Tao's grandfather finally spent a fortune to buy a second-hand 56 half, Type 56 semi-automatic rifle. That 56 half's rifling was almost worn out. When fired, the bullets would drift to the left. Don't ask why he bought a second-hand one. There's only one reason: stingy. Luckily, he bought a second-hand one. The 56 half hadn't even been used for 3 months when the country banned guns. That's right, guns were banned. Less than half a year later, hunting was banned. Wang Tao's grandfather was so angry he almost couldn't catch his breath. Anyway, whatever, he just wouldn't hand them in. Luckily, in the countryside, the enforcement wasn't that strict. But after the gun ban, there was nowhere to buy bullets. Although it was possible to reload bullets, but he couldn't find a place to buy primers anymore. Moreover, making mercury fulminate for primers, potassium chlorate, messing with that stuff at home could really get you killed. Wang Tao, who grew up at his grandparents' house, was bound to inherit his grandfather's marksmanship. From the age of 15 or 16, he followed his grandpa up the mountain to hunt every day, and so his shooting skills were passed down. With a Type 56 semi-automatic, shooting at moving targets within 150 meters. If he aimed at your right eye, he wouldn't hit your left. Until he went to a low-tier college. Most of his vacation time was spent playing with guns in the mountains. Only after his grandpa passed did he turn in that Type 56. Wang Tao felt a deep familiarity with the AK in his hands, a relic from the same era as the Type 56. Taking the military knife from the dead kidnapper, he cut a small piece of cotton cloth and began to clean the gun. When he disassembled the AK, Wang Tao was completely stunned. If this wasn't divine intervention, this gun would have blown apart long ago. Although the AK is durable and tough, you still can't neglect maintenance entirely. The exterior looks okay, but the inside of the barrel is no different from a dumpster outside. Sand, grease, and gunpowder residue. If it weren't for close-quarters combat, the bullets might be flying anywhere but the target. And thinking the rifle was in such a state, hell, the bullets probably weren't much better either. Wang Tao quickly ejected the rounds from the magazine one by one. Good grief, you wouldn't notice without a close look. The bullets were all different in thickness and size. A few of the casings were even dented. Bro, you're still reloading with those? Wang Tao had seen Brother Obio being unreliable in videos back in China, but never thought it would be this bad. He's basically playing with his own life. Black man, I'm not playing with my own life. You know what faith-based shooting is? One is being afraid of getting shot by someone else. The other is being afraid of getting shot by your own gun. Most countries in Africa don't have their own ammunition production lines. They rely heavily on imports. And the sellers include Tsarist Russia, South Africa, Egypt, Bahrain, Pakistan, and Algeria. Of course, there's also the United States and China. The sources are extremely complicated. Among them, the best quality is from the American goods, but the price is prohibitive. Next up are bullets from Tsarist Russia. Unlike the Americans with their deep pockets, they don't use all copper casings, but they're not far off. Chinese made bullets fall in the middle ground. The quality of production is definitely beyond reproach, but the materials aren't great. They have steel casings, with rust resistance far inferior to the Americans' all-brass bullets. Add to that the African environment and the local culture. Those guys have zero concept of maintenance. They just hang the bullets on themselves as a display of wealth. So Chinese steel-cased bullets were no longer considered hard currency. As for bullets produced by the remaining countries, they were a mixed bag, especially those from Bahrain, South Africa, and Algeria. They imitated the appearance perfectly, but whether they would fire or not, and whether the gunpowder burned completely were two very different matters. Wang Tao ejected all the bullets from his 4 magazines. Then he began to pick through them. The method was also very simple. See which bullet felt heavier in the hand, had no external damage, and had a clear steel stamp. That was definitely a good bullet. Focused Wang Tao didn't notice at all that Anton, who had been snoring just moments before, had stopped snoring. His closed eyes had even cracked open a small slit. At this moment, in the wealthy district of Nairobi, in a mansion worth over $3 million, the biggest gang leader, Nandi, was wearing a gray suit, sitting gracefully at his desk, handling various issues. If it weren't for the guards standing nearby holding AKs, with fierce looks on their faces, you'd think Nandi was just a businessman. The phone on the office desk rang. Nandi picked up the call. Nandi, who had been calm at first, his expression grew darker and darker. Nandi roared into the phone. Fuck, do you take me for a fool? Are you saying that 2 people with their hands and feet tied managed to break free and killed all 7 armed men? This isn't Hollywood. Jabari on the other end of the line felt wrong too. He said very firmly, Boss, that's exactly what happened. The whole street saw it. A Russian and a Chinese guy came out of the building with AKs and killed 2 guys who tried to tail them. Then they stole a motorcycle and took off. When Nandi heard the word Chinese, his face turned even darker. You have to understand that in recent years, China's influence in the world has been growing, especially in Africa. If someone manages to get to the embassy, things will get complicated. Nandi lowered his voice and threatened. You dared to kidnap a Chinese person, and then you let them get away? If the embassy comes looking for us, we're done. If it weren't for the fact that you usually show your respect, I'd kill you. Hearing Nandi's words, Jabari, holding the phone, broke out in a cold sweat. Good thing I'm not usually greedy, or Nandi would have done exactly what he said, and killed me. Jabari's voice trembled as he spoke. Don't worry, boss. I have their passports, phones, and wallets. And as soon as I got the news, I sent people to stake out near the embassy. What should we do now? Nandi finally calmed down a bit. He said, I'll handle the rest. You keep an eye on the embassy side of things. Find 2 reliable brothers. After killing the man, hide out by the garbage dump for a while. Got it, thanks, boss. After Nandi hung up the phone, soon, a photo sent by Jabari appeared on his phone. He immediately tapped forwarded it to the deputy chief of the Nairobi police. Of course, the gang's backing is the police station. The chief of Nairobi is just a titular politician. The top leader doesn't handle specific matters. This is universal in any country. The real power handling daily police affairs lies with the deputy chief, the second in command. Besides the regular dividends to the police station, Nandi also privately gives the deputy chief $1 million every year. A warrant? Do we need a bounty? 10,000 USD, 1 photo, 2 sentences. Wang Tao went from victim to wanted fugitive. Of course, the kidnappers also became innocent civilians murdered by the thugs. Wanted fugitive Wang Tao looked at his polished AK and magazines full of good bullets. He was very satisfied, grinning from ear to ear. Anton suddenly opened his eyes, threw the AK in his hand to Wang Tao, and before Wang Tao could react, he snatched the AK from Wang Tao's hands. That's right, he flat out took it, and also took the magazines. He was as outrageous as could be. Wang Tao was so angry he saw red. He had seen jerks, but never such a jerk. It was like Wang Tao had a daughter, like raising a flower, carefully nurtured since childhood, afraid it would melt in his mouth, afraid it would fall from his hands, only for her to grow up and someone take her, pot and all. Wang Tao roared, Anton, too far. Anton casually picked his ear and said very casually, all right, rookie, don't get so worked up. Wait until we're safe. I'll give you a brand new AK-12. The AK-12 is the latest rifle adopted by the Russian military. Wang Tao, being a gun enthusiast, was definitely aware of that. The temptation was certainly there. But Anton was just too infuriating. Wang Tao felt that his anger couldn't be soothed by just an AK-12. Give it back, he said, though his tone wasn't as firm as before. Anton, who had spent a long time in the underworld, knew that. There was nothing that money couldn't solve. It was just a matter of the price not being right. Anton raised a finger and said, I'll add a Glock to the deal. In truth, if Anton had insisted a little longer, Wang Tao, who hadn't seen much of the world, would have agreed. Sure enough, a man of strong will gets more in return. It's a deal. Wang Tao happily picked up the AK that Anton tossed over and started wiping it down. Damn, this feels good. Anton dozed off for a while again. About 3 hours or so passed. After Wang Tao finished cleaning the gun, he even woke up from a nap. At this moment, the owner of this shabby house returned from outside. Ike entered his dilapidated hut. Seeing Anton and Wang Tao holding guns, he immediately raised his hands. In Africa, you can be bad at anything, but you must know how to surrender. A second too slow, and you might just reincarnate. Wang Tao was shocked by how practiced Ike was at surrendering. Ike had a strong will to survive. He quickly signaled that he was harmless. Don't kill me. Anton was clearly familiar with this kind of behavior among Africans. He didn't make a big deal out of it like Wang Tao. To avoid unnecessary trouble, Anton spoke to calm Ike down. As long as you cooperate, we won't harm the innocent. After all, the hut wasn't very soundproof. Hearing Anton's words, Wang Tao realized that Anton was no simple guy. His words carried two meanings. The first part, won't harm the innocent, meant they had no intention of killing Ike. The part about the room not being very soundproof provided the reason not to kill Ike. After hearing what Anton said, Ike's terrified expression immediately softened a lot. If a person is under extreme fear, no one but God can predict what actions they will take to save their life. With the hope of staying alive, a person becomes cooperative. Surround on 3 sides, leave one open. The ancients are not deceiving me. Thinking about it, Anton chose this room after careful consideration. The room was filled with empty bottles, indicating that Ike had a habit of saving things. This indirectly proved that Ike was not a short-sighted person. It was impossible that he would be foolish enough to risk being beaten to death to inform on them. Ike, who had kept his hands raised the entire time, said, I'll cooperate. Wang Tao thought for a moment and knew that this Ike was an important part of Anton's escape plan. As Wang Tao expected, Anton made a universal gesture to him. He rubbed his thumb and forefinger together. Wang Tao pulled out the $76 he'd taken from the kidnapper and took them from his pocket. Then, just as he was about to hand them to Anton cut him off. Anton pointed at Ike and said, Give it to him, brother. What's your name? Ike looked at the money in Wang Tao's hand, a little uncertain. Thinking to himself, You've already got a gun in hand. Are you still planning to pay rent? Ike. The word made Wang Tao remember. A hero's name from a video game he'd played. Ike. Good name. I need a favor from you. Help me buy a phone card. After saying that, Anton shot Wang Tao a glare. Give him the money, you idiot. What's the point of holding those $76 so tight? Wang Tao gave an awkward smile and quickly handed the money to Ike. Ike took the cash on instinct, a mind that was already a bit inadequate. Now it's even more inadequate. Ike asked instinctively, Aren't you afraid I'll take the money and run? Or report you too? Wang Tao held his head, feeling that this black man named Ike. His head didn't seem to work well. How could he ask that? Anton wasn't surprised at all. The black people here are barely smarter than monkeys. Anton said nonchalantly, What's there to fear if you go and report us? Your shack, all the stuff you painstakingly collected, will all vanish into nothing. After hearing this, Wang Tao felt Anton was like a demon. Just think about how long it took Ike alone to collect all this trash. Although these things themselves might have very low value. For Ike, the time and effort invested were considerable. Sure enough, Ike's face changed drastically. He stared intently at Anton. Haven't moved for a long time. Wang Tao thought Ike had been pissed off by Anton. After holding in for ages, Ike pointed at the pillow beneath Anton's butt and said, I have the phone card, it's right under your butt. Well, Wang Tao admitted he was overthinking things. Anton also got embarrassed, went through a whole series of tricks, using both threats and bribes, only to find the thing he wanted was sitting right under his own. But Ike took the money and kept quiet, tried to make himself as inconspicuous as possible. Anton reached under the pillow and pulled out the phone Ike had hidden. One could barely call it a phone. The buttons on the screen, besides the green answer and red hang up, only had the 6 and 9 left. A battle-damaged limited edition. Anton even tried turning it on. The Hello Moto startup sound rang out. Hearing that, Wang Tao was completely dumbfounded. If he wasn't mistaken, the casing was a Nokia, right? Anton was clearly shocked as well. To avoid being frozen in place for another minute, he decided to stop examining this ultimate Frankenstein-like phone. Wang Tao watched as Anton swapped Ike's SIM card into his Nokia. After turning it on, he dialed a number and made a call. "Hello, this is Anton. I've run into gang trouble in Nairobi. I need your backup." "Yes, bring everything you can." Hearing this, Wang Tao immediately felt like he had latched onto an incredibly powerful ally. "Okay, keep in touch." With that, Anton hung up. Then he instructed Wang Tao. "Someone will come to pick us up, but it will take time." "How long?" he said, glancing at the Casio watch taken from the kidnapper. Anton replied, "It's 3:30 p.m. now. Considering border crossing and travel, it will be at least tomorrow noon before they arrive." It's good to have backup." Anton continued, "We'll rest for another hour, and then we need to move. Kibera slum. This place is no longer safe. We need to go back to the wealthy area in the city center." Wang Tao was somewhat confused, so he asked in a tone of seeking advice, "Wouldn't it be better for us to hide in the slum? Why go back to the wealthy area?" Anton was obviously very patient with Wang Tao and explained to him, the slum may seem chaotic, but actually, the harsher the living environment, the more the poor need to help each other to cope with life's troubles. So if someone seriously looks for us, we can easily be found. Hearing this from Anton, Wang Tao understood the reasoning. The slum has its own operating system, and the relationships between people are closer than he imagined. Anton then continued, "And don't forget, it's the gangsters who are hunting us. The slums are their home turf." "Got it. Let's leave now." Having said that, Wang Tao immediately got up and prepared to move. Anton gestured and said, "No ruse." Finding the SIM card went so smoothly that it bought us an hour's leeway. Whether it was stress unlocking his potential, or Wang Tao being naturally suited to dangerous situations. Hearing 1 hour, Wang Tao ignored how dirty the metal bunk bed was, climbed onto it, leaned back, closed his eyes, and seized the chance to rest. Anton, in a feigned apologetic tone, said to Ike, who still had his hands raised, "Sorry, brother. We still need to trouble you for another hour." Ike played along and replied, "No problem. My time isn't worth much anyway." Anton shrugged, and he closed his eyes and started to rest. Ike also lowered his arms and squatted down on the spot, seeming like he wouldn't move from there for the whole hour. But Ike's expression kept shifting, sometimes timid, sometimes resolute, sometimes wild, sometimes calm. His inner turmoil made his appearance fierce. Anton noticed this too, but he didn't pay it any mind. Everyone has all kinds of thoughts, as long as the final choice is right. The thoughts along the way don't matter. And if the choice is wrong, it's no big deal. Just make a different choice in the next life. Wang Tao, exhausted beyond measure, slept deeply for about half an hour and then woke up. "Keep an eye on things, I'll get some sleep." With that, Anton closed both eyes and went to sleep. Wang Tao stared at Ek, who was still squatting in place. The muscle talent of black people is no joke. Even Ek, who was clearly malnourished, still had a body full of lean muscle. If Anton hadn't been here, Wang Tao felt he wouldn't be able to control Ek. Of course, that was assuming he didn't use a gun. Time flew by quickly. Half an hour passed, in what felt like an instant. Anton said he would sleep for half an hour, and he slept exactly half an hour, not a minute more or less. After getting up, Anton grabbed an old coat from the bed and wrapped the AK inside it as a simple disguise, so as not to draw attention while walking down the street. Of course, Wang Tao followed suit and did the same. "Let's go." Having rested enough, Anton got up, ready to set off. Wang Tao naturally followed behind Anton. Just as the two were passing by Ike, Ike suddenly spoke up. "Can you take me along?" Ike's words not only stunned Wang Tao, but also caught Anton off guard. Was this kid out of his mind? Anyone with half a brain could see that he and Anton were running for their lives. And yet Ike wanted to join them in risking it all. Wang Tao really didn't understand. Wang Tao didn't grasp the desperation of living in the slums. From the moment he was born, Ike could see his entire life laid out before him. There were only two paths ahead of him: scavenge garbage for a living, or join a gang. But neither path was what Ike wanted. However, Ike had clearly sparked Anton's interest. So Anton stopped in his tracks and asked, standing there, "Why? I'll give you 1 minute. Convince me to take you along." Ike suddenly got excited. He stammered out, "I don't want to be trapped in this slum forever. My mom told me, in a lifetime, you might only get one chance to change your fate. If you don't seize it, you'll never see another one. Anton clearly wasn't convinced by Ike's reason. He continued looking at his Casio watch and reminded him, 30 seconds left. Ike broke out in a sweat from the anxiety. His limited vocabulary made it hard to express his thoughts. 20 seconds. Anton's calm voice sounded in the room. Suddenly, Ike saw Wang Tao about to put on his hat. Inspiration struck. Anton's meaning was very clear. He didn't want to know what he was thinking. Rather, he wanted to know his value. Ike spoke rapidly. You're being hunted right now. This is your most difficult time. If I can help you at this moment, then you'll definitely be very grateful to me. Help me. Wang Tao was speechless at Ike's lack of vocabulary in a foreign language. It was a classic case of a timely favor in 4 Chinese characters. All this and help that was a complete waste of time. Just as Wang Tao thought Anton had been persuaded by Ike, who knew Anton would continue counting. 10, 9, 8. Ike was so anxious he could almost cry, not knowing what else to say. To move Anton, Wang Tao felt a twinge of pity for Ike. Without making a sound, he pointed at his own skin with the index finger of his left hand, the one not holding the gun, silently mouthing a word for a color. If such an obvious hint was something Ek couldn't understand, then it was better for him to stay in the slums. Going out would just be walking to his death. If Ek didn't have some brains, he wouldn't have saved all those bottles he could trade for money. He would have ended up like the other zombie, like kids outside, sniffing glue. Ek spoke at an unprecedented speed. Skin color. The 2v1 white. 1 yellow. Skin color here is way too conspicuous. If I join you, it will definitely lower your chances of being discovered. Besides, I know the informants that District 3 has in the slums. I can help you avoid them. It was the first time Wang Tao learned that the gang that had kidnapped him was called District 3. I'll give you 3 minutes to pack your things. Obviously, Anton was convinced by Ike. As for the skin color issue, or that Ike knew the informants in District 3, only Anton himself knew. Wang Tao stood there watching Ike, who was moving at an extremely fast pace, pulling out the things he intended to take. Ike lifted the entire mattress, revealing the metal frame bed. Under the bed was a lockbox. Of course, the box was fixed in place. Ike pulled a key from around his neck. Then he unlocked the box. Wang Tao curiously glanced at it. There were very few items in the box. Just a bit of US dollars, and a photo, and 4 pieces of chocolate. Wang Tao, imitating Anton, shrugged his shoulders. This black man really likes eating chocolate. After stuffing the photo and money into his pocket, Ike picked up a piece of chocolate, tore open the wrapper, and stuffed it into his mouth. The sweet feeling filled Ike with hope for the future. I'm ready. Anton put the baseball cap on his head. Then he walked out of Ike's room. Wang Tao also pulled his cap down low, following behind Anton. Once outside, Wang Tao noticed that it was exactly as Ike had said. The two of them looked completely out of place here. Everyone on the street was staring at them. Having made up his mind, Ike didn't linger in the room either. He followed close behind Wang Tao as he came out. Once outside, Ike grabbed the tarp covering the wooden frame and shouted loudly, "Everything in this house. Whoever grabs it, it's theirs." Ike's words set the whole street ablaze with excitement. After all, the goods in Ike's house were considered hard currency around here. In other words, pure money. On the street, men and women, young and old alike, all were racing toward Ike's home, afraid of being a step too slow and missing out on the good stuff. Wang Tao's estimation of Ike rose another notch. With that one move, he had drawn the attention of the entire street away. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Anton quickly made his way outside. Wang Tao and Ike followed closely behind Anton. Wang Tao wondered how Anton could navigate the chaotic slums and recognize which roads led where. At every intersection, Anton would ask Ike where the 3rd District's informants were, but Anton didn't always avoid them. Sometimes he would deliberately pass right in front of an informant. However, as a hunter, Wang Tao had an exceptionally good sense of direction. As they say in the Northeast, he had a good memory for roads. If you connected all the spots where Anton passed in front of informants and then extended the line, it pointed toward the depths of Kibra. But in reality, they were heading toward the city. Relying solely on walking to get back to the wealthy district was simply unrealistic. Wang Tao had thought Anton would carjack like before, but instead the guy just raised his hand and hailed a taxi from slums. How should I put it? This taxi was just so down to earth. Wong Tao naively imagined he'd be like James Bond in the movies, carjacking and speeding off to raise hell in Nairobi. Instead, he found himself on the back of a bicycle, being pedaled around by a black guy. A closer look revealed it was an old-school 28-inch bike, and if the paint hadn't been completely stripped and resprayed, you could probably still see the words Phoenix brand on it. That's right, the slum zone taxis are bicycles. No gas needed, no maintenance required. Can carry people up top and cargo down below. 100 kilometers for just 2 bananas. Eco-friendly, you deserve it. But then Wong Tao thought it only cost $2 and happily accepted. Never mind the experience. As long as it's cheap. The taxi driver pedaled furiously, and Wong Tao, on the streets of Nairobi, enjoyed the feeling of racing on a bicycle. He had to admire these black guys. They pedaled the bike as if it were a motorcycle. Plus, they knew all the shortcuts in the city, making them even faster than Anton on his scooter. Now that's what you call professional. Although Wong Tao, having been through the scooter ride and the old-fashioned bicycle ordeal, was mentally prepared for what came next. But dude, why are you going to KFC? Anton found a seat closest to the door and sat down, then pulled out $50 from his pocket, handed it to Ike, and said, 6 burgers, 1 order of fried chicken, and a Coke, and also 6 bottles of Coke. Seeing Anton order so much, Wong Tao thought he was getting some for him too, so he kept quiet. Clearly, after spending some time together, Anton had a good grasp of Wong Tao's thoughts. Anton summed him up as a smart but naive tough guy. Order whatever you want to eat. All of that is just for me. Wong Tao scratched his head awkwardly. Damn, Anton really has a big appetite. Can he even finish 6 burgers? Wong Tao said to Ike, who was beside him, I'll take a serving of fried chicken, a serving of fries, 2 burgers, and a Coke without ice. Can you even drink Coke without ice? It's called health conscious, you know? Ike stopped listening to their bickering, turned around, and went to find the waiter to order. Wong Tao had to admit, having Ike around made things easier. He and Anton received much less attention. Wong Tao was about to ask Anton where they were going next, but then realized he didn't know anywhere himself. So he dropped the matter. Instead, most of Wong Tao's attention, along with Anton's, was focused outside KFC. Anton was extremely vigilant, and his counter-surveillance skills were no joke. Wong Tao felt unlucky to have run into a kidnapping abroad, but meeting a pro like Anton was a blessing in disguise. Still, Wong Tao was curious. Since Anton was so skilled, how did he end up being kidnapped? Driven by curiosity, Wong Tao asked, Anton, with your skills, how did you get kidnapped? He had to bring up that sore spot. Anton's face instantly darkened. That's the one thing I don't like about Chinese people. No sense of boundaries at all. Anton said irritably, Don't call me Anton outside. Call me by my nickname, Polar Bear. In our line of work, real names are best known only to close friends. Wong Tao said excitedly, Polar Bear, I know your real name. Does that mean I'm your close friend now? Anton now wished he could take back what he just said. How could he be moved by such a careless fool calling him comrade? And then he went and told him his real name. Suckably at, Wong Tao started thinking about giving himself a nickname, as if he was naming a character for the first time in a game. He muttered to himself, Then should I give myself a nickname too? The nickname has to be cool. Nicknames like Polar Bear are so cliché. Anton wanted to strangle this chatterbox. What do you mean Polar Bear is cliché? It's clearly mighty and imposing. How did it become so pathetic in this guy's mouth? Tiger, wolf, wild boar, fox, moose. Wong Tao muttered the names of various animals under his breath. Clearly, he had been led astray by Anton's Polar Bear. Of course, there was also the fact that as a hunter, Wong Tao had an inexplicable obsession with animals. Listening on, Anton felt he couldn't bear it anymore. He spoke up to remind him, these names are all overused. If you don't want to share a name with others, it's best to choose a word that's not so common. Wong Tao finally realized. In this real world, just like in games, names can't be duplicated. This is really tricky. What kind of animal name would be suitable? What Wong Tao most wanted to use was still the king of the forest, the tiger. But even with his heel, he could tell that the nickname Tiger was definitely overused. This made Wong Tao very uncomfortable. Anton, who had been repeatedly thwarted by Wong Tao, caught a glimpse of Wong Tao's expression, which looked like he had just eaten something foul, and the corners of his mouth curled up, as if saying, look who's come down in the world. Wang Tao thought for a long time, but couldn't come up with a nickname for himself. His face was all scrunched up, like a steam bun. As a fast food joint, KFC's service speed was beyond reproach. I could already brought over the burgers and cola. Only the fries and fried chicken were not ready yet. Anton started eating right away. One burger down in just 3 bites. The speed left Wang Tao utterly stunned. Ike, on the side, was no slouch either. Like they were reincarnated, starving ghosts. He downed a large cola in one gulp, making Wang Tao feel like he wanted a burp just watching. Whether someone has gone hungry or not could be seen from how fast they eat. Ike and Anton looked like they had definitely gone hungry before. In contrast, Wang Tao, eating slowly and carefully, stood out like a sore thumb. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration struck Wang Tao. Since Tiger is such a common nickname, so if we had a prefix, it won't be easy to have the same name, right? Like Anton's polar bear. Wang Tao said excitedly. I figure out what my name is. Northeast Tiger. Northeast Tiger is usually translated into English as Siberian Tiger. And when Anton heard that Wang Tao's nickname was Siberian Tiger, he even forgot to swallow the hamburger in his mouth. How can polar bear be as domineering as Siberian Tiger? Not only is it domineering, it also carries the symbol of the Soviet Union. It's practically tailor-made for me. How could he let this guy in front of him use it? Anton was so angry he almost ground his teeth to dust. Having come up with a suitable name, Wang Tao finally felt relieved. At the same time, his appetite also greatly increased. He quickly started eating his hamburger. I got up again and brought back the remaining fried chicken fries. Wang Tao was also infected by the eating speed of Anton and Ike. I switched from chewing to swallowing and was full in about 5 minutes. I'm full. Wang Tao remarked on how generous the portions were at this KFC. There was leftover fried chicken and fries. Ike and Anton also quickly gobbled up the leftover fried chicken and fries from Wang Tao. Anton took the 6 bottles of Coke and distributed them to Wang Tao and Ike, 2 bottles each. Although Wang Tao didn't understand why Anton was doing this, he knew there must be a reason. So he took them and silently put them into his waist pack. Coke is actually a must-have for anything, whether at home, traveling, or even on a murderous rampage. The sugar in Coke can quickly replenish energy, and caffeine also helps keep the mind alert. After replenishing their energy, Anton got up and left McDonald's. Wang Tao followed behind Anton. After winding through the streets for about 3 blocks, Wang Tao felt that the surrounding buildings and storefronts looked very familiar. Damn, isn't this the street where the kidnappers held them in that 2-story building? Anton had come back for a counterattack. At the entrance of the 2-story building, an old box truck was parked. Anton lowered his voice and said, "Cover me." With that, he crept toward the box truck. Wang Tao raised his AK. He flipped off the safety, set the selector lever to horizontal, switched it to fully automatic mode, then followed closely behind Anton, ensuring that if Anton failed, he could immediately go in and provide backup fire. Anton, holding a knife, crept up to the truck. He found that the cab of the truck was empty. There was only one possibility, that everyone was in the building. After Anton gestured that he was going to enter the house, he then remembered that Wang Tao was not a professionally trained soldier. He wouldn't understand tactical hand signals. So he spoke up and said, "If we don't use guns to subdue the people in the building, it can buy us a safe night. Bet or not, since we've come this far," Wang Tao said with a bold streak. "Bet? I guarantee I'll take care of one." Anton was quite satisfied with Wang Tao. On the battlefield, only state what you can handle. Never exaggerate, or it'll mislead your teammates. You'll be screwed yourself, and the enemy might break through your line, getting your teammates killed too. I chimed in, "I can take one too." When it came to African black guys talk, Anton had been burned more than once, so he wasn't buying what I said, treating him like he wasn't even on the team. Anton waved his hand, signaling to follow, then crouched low and quietly approached the door. Wang Tao followed Anton, pulling his combat knife from his belt, gripping it tightly in his hand, silently repeating to himself, "It's a wild boar, not a person. It's a wild boar, not a person." Self-brainwashing is the most deadly. Wang Tao really calmed down. He switched to the mindset of a hunter toward prey. The door of the small building was wide open. Wang Tao could faintly hear the voices of people inside. Wang Tao saw Anton at the doorway. After peeking his head in and looking around, he extended his fingers, gesturing a 4. The meaning was quite clear. There were 4 people in the room. Wang Tao nodded at Anton, signaling that he understood. Then Anton began retracting his extended fingers one by one, starting a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Once he retracted them all, Anton charged into the room, taking the lead. He lunged at the nearest enemy, catching him off guard too. Take him out first. The fastest way to kill with a military knife is to stab. Anton first feigned a thrust at the nearest enemy's throat. The enemy instinctively raised his hand to block, but Anton quickly switched the saber from his right hand to his left, changing from a reverse grip to a forward grip. Since it was hot in Africa, most people only wore a single layer of short sleeves. The blade easily pierced through the clothes and sank in. The saber drove straight up from below the ribs, entering through the lower side. The enemy's diaphragm was instantly punctured. The diaphragm is the partition between the chest and abdominal cavities, and it is also the primary breathing muscle, a key organ for maintaining intra-abdominal pressure. Once the diaphragm is punctured, it leads to difficulty breathing. Even so, Anton wasn't reassured. He twisted the handle forcefully with his forearm, causing the blade to rotate inside the enemy's body, coupled with a blood groove on the blade. The enemy was instantly severely wounded. Extreme pain combined with breathing difficulty. The enemy couldn't even let out a scream. In an instant, the enemy lost the ability to resist. However, stabbing that deep had a drawback. It was hard to pull the knife back out. The injured muscles tightened and clamped around the blade. Added to that, the gushing blood made the handle slippery, so Anton gave up on the option of pulling the knife out. He lunged at the enemy who was about to get up. Just as Anton stabbed the first enemy to death, Wang Tao followed closely, knife in hand, lunging at the enemy sitting on the sofa farthest from them. Of course, Wang Tao wasn't as sharp with the knife as Anton, and couldn't directly strike a vital point. So Wang Tao changed from stabbing to slashing. Just as the enemy on the sofa was getting up, Wang Tao lunged in and slashed the enemy's arm with his knife. Blood immediately gushed out, and Wang Tao kept pressing the attack. Holding the knife in reverse grip, he traced figure eights. The enemy's arm was covered with cuts. The enemy, in pain, could only retreat, and he clearly forgot that behind him was the sofa. After only 2 steps back, his legs hit against the sofa. At this point, the enemy realized that being forced back onto the sofa meant certain death, so he became desperate. If the enemy could withstand Wang Tao's attack and directly grab Wang Tao's arm to restrict his movements, then there might be a sliver of hope. But the enemy had clearly watched too many TV dramas, as he actually tried to disarm Wang Tao with his bare hands. Disarming someone barehanded can only be achieved when one's fighting skills far surpass the others, and a small edge won't cut it. It requires a significant gap in skill to even have a chance. Seeing the enemy reaching out toward him, Wang Tao simply slashed with a knife. The enemy's palm was cut open instantly, with the white bone faintly visible. At this point, forget about disarming. Even clenching a fist was difficult. The principle of hitting someone when they're down is quite evident in a fight. Wang Tao saw that the enemy's right hand was injured, so he attacked even faster. It was like a berserker unleashing their ultimate. He not only slashed with his knife, but threw his whole body into it, knocking the enemy in front of him onto the sofa, and while the enemy was dazed, he punched him right on the temple. Of course, Wang Tao learned this move from TV shows, having grown up watching martial arts films. He picked it up just from watching. Gotta say, those old-school martial arts movies had real substance. After a heavy blow to the temple, it can cause the vestibular system in the brain to be shaken, and hearing and balance are linked together. Inside the ear's utricle, there's a tiny stone called the otolith. The otolith is a vestibular sensory organ. It governs the body's balance. Once the otolith is shaken, it can cause dizziness, and in severe cases, even fainting. Experiencing such symptoms in battle is equivalent to becoming a lamb to the slaughter. Wang Tao, who had struck the enemy's temple heavily, felt the enemy's resistance weaken instantly. Reversing his grip, Wang Tao twisted his wrist and plunged the knife into the enemy's neck. The carotid artery was pierced. Unless a doctor was there to give first aid, death was certain within 3 minutes. Wang Tao didn't stab too deep. Seeing the blood spurt out, he pulled the knife out. The enemy in front of him, driven by survival instinct, reached up to cover the wound on his neck. But against a ruptured artery, it was futile. Resistance was out of the question. Death was only a matter of time. Relieved of his opponent, Wang Tao quickly turned around to help Anton and Ike. Just as Wang Tao turned, he saw the situation of the two men's battle. Anton was greatly surprised. He had just killed the first enemy, and he leaped toward the second enemy, who was the strongest of the four enemies in the building. He was over 1.9 meters tall and weighed about 150 kilograms. It would certainly take time to take him down with fists alone, but the most brutal fight was on Yak's side. Yak, who made a living scavenging in the slums, could not possibly have much weight on him. He was at least 10 kilograms lighter than a black man of the same height. Don't underestimate that 10 kilograms of body weight. In a boxing match, that would be an entire weight class difference. With no weapon in his hands, Yak fell into a disadvantage as soon as he engaged the enemy. Yak lived in the slums, yet managed to have a house. And he placed so many empty water bottles there without anyone stealing them. Without a bit of toughness, he couldn't have kept them safe. Yak fought the enemy like hyenas tearing at each other. His main attack was gouging out the eyes, also biting ears like world champion boxer Mike Tyson, kneeing the groin, bloody yet non-lethal. But the key to the battle, Wang Tao had already taken down his opponent, and Wang Tao's victory was like the first domino falling. The entire battle collapsed. Seeing Wang Tao charging with a knife, Yak used all his strength to hold the enemy tightly. As a hunter, Wang Tao knew how developed a wild boar's latissimus dorsi muscles were. He figured humans were probably similar, to avoid the blade getting stuck in muscle or caught on ribs. This awkward situation, Wang Tao chose to slit the enemy's throat. Slitting the throat is the fastest and deadliest method. The blade sliced across the neck. This time, since he acted from behind, so Wang Tao applied quite a bit of force. So much so that the blade almost reached his cervical spine. Blood spurted out from the artery. Wang Tao forgot that Ike and the enemy were clinging together. The still warm blood splattered over Ike's mouth, nose, and eyes. Sarya, Anton, who was engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the enemy over there, felt that ever since he met this guy Wang Tao, his worldview had shattered into pieces. Bro, this is a life and death moment. How do you have time to apologize? Ike wiped his face with his hand, spit, and said, "It's okay." Anton felt like cursing his mother. With these two lunatics spending time apologizing and forgiving each other, couldn't they come over and help? That big black guy's fists are made of paper, and his punches hurt like hell. Come and help. Wang Tao scratched his head sheepishly. He had thought Anton was having some master-level duel over there. As a rookie, I'd better not go up there and cause trouble. Seeing Wang Tao coming over with a knife, the enemy who was fighting with Anton began to panic. In a fight, once you become impatient and agitated, you will inevitably reveal a flaw. Anton, a fighting expert, seized the right moment. He dodged to the left to avoid a punch thrown at him. Then he reached out and grabbed the enemy's head. Then, with a grunt, the veins on his arm bulging, he twisted clockwise with force and snapped the enemy's neck. Good heavens, Wang Tao felt a pain in his own neck just watching. Awesome. Wang Tao even applauded Anton. Meanwhile, Ike, who had just pushed the corpse off himself, in order to stay in sync with his teammate, also applauded along with Wang Tao and said, "Awesome." Hearing the praise from these two simpletons, Anton felt not a hint of joy. Wang Tao watched as Anton finished off the wounded enemies, a flicker of doubt rising in his heart. He asked Polar Bear, "Who are these four people?" Anton, who was pulling the knife out of a body, replied, "Cleaners. They're the ones in the gang who handle the bodies." Wang Tao asked in surprise, "The Mafia has people specifically for that?" Anton spoke with a tone that suggested Wang Tao was naive. What's there to be so surprised about? When a Mafia kills someone, they can't just dump the body on the street, can they? For every killer, there's someone to take care of the corpse. Some gangs even run their own crematoriums. After a kill, they just incinerate the body right away. Wang Tao was utterly shocked by what he heard. So the other side of this world was this dark. Thinking about it, the people he had killed were all villains, weren't they? Wasn't he just carrying out justice on heaven's behalf? Suddenly, Wang Tao felt a sense of clarity. Of course, the expression on his face looked quite astonishing to Anton. Remember, Wang Tao had only committed his first murder at noon today. How could he suddenly come to terms with it so quickly? Back when I first killed someone, I felt terrible for many days. Unable to figure it out, Anton decided not to dwell on it anymore. Looking at the ground floor, covered in bloodstains, he ordered Ike, "Clean this up. I'll go check what's in the box truck." "I'm coming too." Wang Tao, as nosy as ever, followed Anton out of the house. The box truck parked at the gate. The cargo compartment at the back wasn't even padlocked. Wang Tao saw Anton open the cargo compartment. It was pitch black inside, unable to see clearly what was in there. "Go check the driver's cabin for a flashlight." Wang Tao walked over to the driver's cabin of the box truck. He pulled the door handle and found that it wasn't locked. This gang really isn't afraid of being robbed. After that remark, Wang Tao climbed into the driver's cabin and started rummaging around. It didn't take long to find a flashlight in the glove box. After Wang Tao reached the back of the van, he handed the flashlight to Anton, who had already climbed into the cargo area. Anton turned on the flashlight and immediately saw the body bags piled to one side. It was clearly their handiwork. Next to the body bags lay 6 AKs and a large pile of ammunition. This was exactly what Anton was looking for. The few magazines he and Wang Tao had brought were nowhere near enough to sustain even a small skirmish. That's right, even 12 fully loaded magazines wouldn't cut it. In a normal firefight, killing one enemy with a 30-round magazine would already make you a crack shot. After all, during the Iraq War, the U.S. military expended an average of about 200,000 rounds to eliminate a single insurgent. Sure, the U.S. military's wastefulness was a bit exaggerated, but it still shows that in actual combat, ammunition consumption is far greater than one might imagine. Anton didn't know where in Nairobi he could resupply on ammunition, so he had to double back. "Northeast Tiger, come on, help me move these guns and bullets into the building." Anton was clearly reluctant to call Wang Tao Northeast Tiger. "Got it, Polar Bear." Anton always felt that Wang Tao calling him Polar Bear had some sinister intentions, but he had no proof. Wang Tao also noticed Anton's hesitation. He first felt secretly proud of how awesome his nickname-giving skills were, then got in the car and joined Anton in moving the bullets and guns into the house. He also grabbed 2 body bags for Ike to make cleanup easier. At that moment, Anton found the keys to the cargo van on the body, then moved the van and parked it behind the building. Wang Tao was thrilled at the sight of the 6 AKs on the ground, crouching down and immediately tinkering with them. His focus was no less intense than when he was reading a novel. When Anton came back from outside and saw all this, with a confused expression, he wondered if his eyes were playing tricks on him. Is the ACAM such a great gun? Why get so excited about it? Every Chinese person has a certain obsession with guns, something that Anton, who always keeps his gun on him, never understood. Wang Tao felt that the spring on his AK was a bit worn out, so he simply started disassembling the AK. As all 6 AKs were broken down into parts, Wang Tao began selecting new springs. Anton, of course, was not idle either. He found a water pipe in the room and went out again, though no one knew what he was up to. I put all the bodies in the room into body bags and wiped the bloodstains off the floor. Then he sat to the side, staring intently as Wang Tao fiddled with the guns. An expression of envy was written all over Ike's face.